My name's Tiana Smith. I'm a Black multidisciplinary artist that's driven to tell stories about identity and self-discovery through photography, videography, and art curation. At the core of my work, I'm interested in creating visual language that questions representational frameworks, specifically societal constructs of Blackness, sexuality, and femininity.
I think it's so wonderful to see other Black creatives continue to tell our stories and our shared and lived experiences. I've been following your work for so long. I'm curious to know, why do you think it's important to tell the stories you're telling in your art forms?
I think it's important through photography and videography, just like visual language that creates representation for Black queer people, and being able to even look back at the history for Black queerness and for Black history. I want to see more people that look like me, and having that representation is important for people to feel safe, to feel seen and heard. And even being able to see artists like Lena Waithe and Cheryl Dunye that explore their lesbian identity through their film work is something that's so powerful. Being able to actually see that on screen is like, that's me. That's not me, but it's like a version of something that I can connect to and relate to.
I'm so glad that you spoke to specifically Black queerness, because there's such a difference in queerness identity, and the intersection of Black and queerness coming together. It's one thing to see queer folks at parades, queer folks at Pride, queer folks in media, but there is a misrepresentation of those queer folks being Black. What's a stigma in the queer community that you'd like to see addressed and changed?
A stigma in the queer community that I'd like to see addressed and changed is that Black people aren't deserving of love that is tender. I think because of the misrepresentation that's shown in the media about Black people, and that they have to go through something that's traumatic or difficult for them to be seen as deserving and of worth. Because of all these ideas of what it looks like to be a Black strong person, we have to be held to this idea of excellence. And through this mistreatment and the gaslighting, it's hard for us to even be ourselves and love ourselves fully in relationships that we want, and ones that we are fully exploring ourselves and our identity.
I would love to hear more about, how do you feel about that? You know, the intersection of your Blackness and being a woman, and also being queer.
It is powerful. I think for me, being who I am out loud and living as myself, there's power in that. I am reclaiming my femininity, just because when I was first in that discovery of figuring out who I was, I thought because of the ways that they have shown Black queer women to be in the media was like very overly masculine, or that they wouldn't be seen as attractive or attract anyone else if they didn't portray this idea of what that Black woman was supposed to be. So I kind of policed myself into fitting into these norms that I knew weren't me. And I had to shake that. I had to really shake that, and I found a way to understand that I can be whatever I want to be, and I don't have to stick to one thing. Even in the idea that erasure is violence, speaking from a Caribbean standpoint, I find that a lot of the classic songs that we hear when we are cooking in the morning with our family, when we're cleaning on Sundays, it promotes a lot of violence towards queer folks, specifically in Jamaica. To be gay is still illegal in Jamaica since the 1860s.
You touched on such solid points there. The violence is layered, you know, from a Caribbean standpoint, from a gay standpoint, from a woman standpoint. I think a lot of Black queer youth, Black Caribbean queer youth, live in fear. You know, there's this fear to really exist loudly, and this fear to really truly embrace what you look like. And I think that's concerning, and something that I find heartbreaking to hear, especially knowing back home for me is also Jamaica, and knowing that there's violence there and harm that still needs to be eradicated. Can you speak to how you're using your voice currently to make sure Black queer youth feel accepted in these communities?
Even through all the violence, I think it's really important for me that I find power even in creating spaces, community spaces, being able to curate Come As You Are, which is a project that I worked on that started initially as a photo series. It was creating space for Black queer men to just be themselves and exist loudly. It kind of posed the question to, what does it mean to be queer and take up space, and ways in which we can combat toxic masculinity? It's like, through that resistance, we're able to provide stories that just show the existence of Black queer folk.
It's important for Black youth and Black queer youth to know that just by existing, they are starting fires and they're part of something greater than themselves. And it's powerful and affirming to see other Black queer creatives do this work and to create things like Come As You Are.
Through the photo series, it was just something that was so powerful for me to be able to create a space that I would have wanted to see when I was younger. It's like, how do we integrate youth into these spaces to see that there's so much possibilities for who they want to be and who they're feeling fear about in becoming.
I love that. I think there's a very huge need for safer spaces that are specifically created by Black queer folks, because we've seen the ways that Pride has been commercialized and are put on, yes, by allies, but are allies that are not Black. And these spaces sometimes promote harm, which leads me to the question, what does Pride mean to you?
I celebrate Pride by just living as myself out loud, without judgment. I need to be proud of who I am. I only get one life. So why am I going to police myself in the views that people are viewing me? It's like, how can I live authentically as me out loud without feeling fear or judgment or shame for just being exactly who I've been put on this earth to be?
Something that you said that I also find meaningful is detaching shame. I think the Black community as a whole is still learning how to detach shame from our identity and from who we are. And there's a lot of lack of self-acceptance in who we are and embracing what that really looks like. I remember being afraid to unapologetically express myself in the way that I wanted to, because I felt like if I was taking up space, that would invite harm.
I try to do the best that I can to allow people to see us as human, allow people to see us as deserving of kindness.
I think my wish for Black folks and Black queer folks is that we continue to love and accept ourselves despite the systems that haven't, despite the people that haven't. And to quote Bell Hooks, there is no love without justice. My wish is for justice, that queer marriage is legal, that we're able to love whoever we want, that we're not policed, that we're embraced, that we're uplifted, that we receive the justice, we receive the community care, we receive the support, but we also receive the space to just exist. And like you said, to exist loudly.